My name is Amber. I had everything a child could want for growing up, or so it seemed. Because of the meticulous cleaning that my stay-at-home mother did, our large suburban home was always immaculate. Dad was a hotshot engineering executive who made great money. The most expensive private school in town was where my younger brother Jake and I attended, but none of that extravagance could replace what was lacking: my parents' affection and care. Jake was the happiest child from the moment he was born. I kind of faded into the background as Mom and Dad swooned over his every action. The way our parents responded when Jake began playing hockey at age 5 gave the impression that he had just won an Olympic gold medal. Dad would scream to anybody who would listen, "That's our future NHL star. Mark my words, Jake's going to be the next Gretzky." Sitting there with my Strata report card in the meanwhile would hardly even be cause for a "good job, kiddo." However, that's the reality of being the less beloved child, isn't it? Jake's infatuation with hockey has deepened throughout the years as a result of our parents' unwavering desire for him to achieve. They lavished outrageous sums of money on the greatest equipment, personal instructors, and top summer camps. Being the next big thing was Jake's whole identity, and he lived and breathed hockey. Please understand that I cherished my brother. Despite his occasional brat tendencies, Jake was a decent young man. Though I was still wearing hand-me-downs, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of animosity as I watched him lace on those $500 skates. It wasn't his fault our parents put him on such a pedestal. I had no idea that those emotions would only get stronger in the years to come. The dynamic in our family remained dominated by Jake's hockey career, even after I left for college and began to establish my own life. However, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back a little. I forged my own way, even though I felt like an afterthought at home all the time. I worked really hard in school to get into a top institution where I'm studying interior design. The one thing that was genuinely mine and untarnished by Jake's shadow was my passion. Life in college was a blur of novel experiences and independence. With a goal to seize this chance to create my own path, I poured myself into my studies. Every day that went by when they were away from home seemed to ease the continual burden of being the less fortunate child a bit. When I did make contact with my parents, it was infrequent, and the talks were surface level. I didn't receive a thorough report on the situation back home until my junior year, and it wasn't good. Mom murmured, "Amber, you won't believe this nonsense," during one of our rare phone conversations. "Jake's coach is acting utterly nonsensically. Barely is he allowing Jake to play." Thankful that she couldn't see me over the phone, I rolled my eyes. "Oh, what's going on?" "Your 16-year-old sibling is no longer receiving the appropriate amount of ice time. He's barely warming the bench after all of our training investments. I've tried talking to the coach and even the team owner with your father, but they won't listen." As time passed, I found myself putting on my cap and gown and getting ready to graduate. My family was easy to see as I looked through the throng. They were the ones who were constantly checking their phones and appeared inattentive. I approached them with a big smile on my face and my certificate in hand following the ceremony. Dad hugged me and said, "Congrats, sweetie. Listen, our time here is limited." Jake's coach and I agreed to meet early so we could discuss strategy before his big game tonight. I felt my graduation gown suddenly heavy on my shoulders as I watched them dash out. The same old tale, but a new day. After a few months, I was living comfortably in my new apartment and beginning my ideal career as an interior designer. The creativity, the challenge, and the joy of watching a room change under my vision were all things I cherished about the experience. I was jotting down ideas for a client one evening when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Jake's deal was not extended. He is inconsolable. In order to locate him a new team, your father is searching for an agent. Your brother won't talk to anyone, so please give him a call." I gazed at the message, a range of feelings churning within of me. I knew how much hockey meant to Jake, so part of me felt awful for him. But there was also a part of me that felt slightly satisfied, a portion I wasn't proud of. Now perhaps my parents would see that life was about more than just hockey. Neither that night nor the following, I gave Jake no call. I pretended to be too preoccupied with my job, but I knew in my heart that I was avoiding the drama. Maintaining my concentration on my personal life while pursuing my work goals was more manageable. Months stretched into weeks. My parents told me bits and pieces about Jake's continuous hunt for a new team, the agents, the difficulties, and the never-ending letdowns, but it all seemed far away, like news from another planet. I immersed myself into my profession, taking on more clients and challenging my creative boundaries. My designs were gaining recognition, and I was establishing a strong name for myself in the industry. Just when I'd resigned myself to focusing solely on my career, love came knocking in the form of Eric. We met at a client's housewarming party. He was the charming guy who spilled red wine on the pristine white carpet I'd so carefully selected. As I helped him clean up the mess, we got to talking. And before I knew it, we'd spent the entire evening in our own little bubble. Our relationship blossomed quickly. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. By our first anniversary, we decided to move in together. Those 2 years of cohabitation were filled with laughter, love, and the kind of domestic bliss I'd always envied in others, but never thought I'd have for myself. On my 25th birthday, Eric took me out for what I thought was a simple celebratory dinner. As we strolled through the park after our meal, he suddenly dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. As Eric slipped the gorgeous ring onto my finger, I felt a surge of joy, and then a familiar pang of anxiety. How would my parents react? Would they even care? To my surprise, when I called to share the news, my parents seemed genuinely excited. They insisted on meeting Eric right away, and even offered to host a dinner for us. I was cautiously optimistic as we drove to my childhood home that weekend. The dinner started off well enough. My parents welcomed Eric warmly, and for once, I felt like the center of attention. But as the main course arrived, the conversation took an all too familiar turn. "So Eric," my dad said, refilling his wine glass, "did Amber tell you about her brother Jake? He's quite the hockey player, you know." I felt my heart sink as my parents launched into a detailed account of Jake's latest attempts to revive his hockey career. Eric, bless him, tried to steer the conversation back to our engagement several times, but it was like trying to stop a runaway train. Despite this, the evening ended on a positive note. My parents insisted on paying for dinner and even gave us their blessing. As we left, Mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. Let's get together soon to start planning, okay?" Over the next few weeks, I found myself in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. To my amazement, my mother became my constant companion on this journey. We met for coffee to discuss color schemes, spent weekends visiting venues, and even had a tearful moment together as I tried on wedding dresses. Even Dad got in on the action. He insisted on paying for half of the wedding expenses, negotiating with Eric's parents like it was a business deal he was determined to win. I caught him one evening poring over seating charts with the intensity he usually reserved for Jake's hockey strategies. "Dad," I said, surprised, "you don't have to do that. We can handle the seating arrangements." He looked up at me, a soft smile on his face. "Nonsense, pumpkin. This is your big day. I want everything to be perfect." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This was all I'd ever wanted, to feel like I mattered to my parents, to be the focus of their attention and love. One sunny afternoon, I sat at my parents' dining room table, surrounded by color swatches and flower catalogs. Mom and Eric's mother, Linda, were engaged in a heated debate about napkin colors. "I'm telling you, cream is the way to go," Mom insisted, waving a swatch like a flag. "It's classic, elegant, and goes with everything." Linda shook her head firmly. "But blush would tie in so beautifully with the bridesmaids' dresses. Amber, what do you think?" I couldn't help but smile. Honestly, I think either would look lovely. Both women looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Amber, dear," Mom said, patting my hand, "this is your special day. Every detail matters." I bit back a laugh. Who would have thought I'd ever see my mother so invested in something related to me? It was almost comical. The great napkin debate was followed by an equally passionate discussion about the music playlist. Dad and Eric's father, Tom, nearly came to blows over whether we should have a live band or a DJ. I exchanged an amused glance with Eric. "Maybe we could have both," I suggested. "A band for the ceremony and dinner, and a DJ for the dance party after." Both men looked at me with newfound respect. "Now that's using your noggin," Dad said proudly. "See, Tom, my girls got it all figured out." But even as I basked in this newfound parental attention, reality had a way of creeping in. Just as we were finalizing the venue details, Mom's phone buzzed. Her face lit up as she read the message. "Oh, this is wonderful news. Jake's got a tryout with a team in Calgary next week." And just like that, the spell was broken. "That's great," I said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "We'll need to reschedule our cake tasting," Mom said, already typing furiously on her phone. "Your father and I need to fly out with Jake. This could be his big break." This became a recurring theme over the next few weeks. For every wedding plan we managed to nail down, there was a Jake-related interruption. A venue walkthrough was canceled because of Jake's crucial training session. A meeting with the florist was cut short when my parents had to rush Jake to a last-minute interview with a scout. One evening, as Eric and I were going over the guest list, I broke down. "I don't get it," I sobbed into Eric's shoulder. "They're spending thousands on flights and hotels for Jake's hockey pipe dream, but they can't stick around for one lousy florist appointment." Eric held me close, stroking my hair. "I know it's hard, babe. But hey, at least they're helping with the wedding costs, right? That's something." I nodded, wiping my eyes. He was right, of course. The old Amber would have been furious, ready to call off the whole thing in a fit of rage. But I was trying to be more understanding, more mature. The days flew by in a flurry of final wedding preparations. Despite the occasional Jake-related hiccup, I was riding high on a wave of excitement and anticipation. Everything was falling into place. The venue was perfect, the flowers were ordered, and my dress fit like a dream. I could almost taste the happiness that awaited me on my big day. Just a week before the wedding, I was going over last-minute details with our planner when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, Mom. I was just about to call you about the rehearsal dinner tomorrow." "Amber, honey," Mom cut in, her voice tense. "About that, we need to talk. Your father has an urgent business trip, and we're going to have to reschedule the rehearsal. And, well, we might need to postpone the wedding date, too." I felt like I'd been doused with ice water. "I'm sorry, what?" "Mom, please tell me you're joking." "I wish I was, dear, but your father's job is very important, you know that. And I need to go with him for support. We'll let you know when we're back, and we can set a new date then." My mind was reeling. This couldn't be happening. Not now, not when we were so close. "Mom, the wedding is in a week. We can't just postpone it. What about all the guests, the vendors? Everything's paid for. I know it's inconvenient, Amber, but sometimes these things happen. You'll understand when you're older. I ended the call in a daze, my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. How could they do this after all the progress we'd made? All the moments I thought we'd shared. Was I still so unimportant to them? Eric found me an hour later, curled up on our bed, tears streaming down my face. I poured out the whole story, my words punctuated by sobs. We spent the next few hours brainstorming solutions. Could we postpone? What would it cost? Could we do it without them? Nothing felt right. As night fell, I found myself mindlessly scrolling through social media, seeking any distraction from the chaos in my head. That's when I saw it, a post from Jake that made my blood run cold. Eastern Europe, here I come. Can't wait to show these European clubs what real hockey looks like. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for always having my back. This is going to be my big break. I can feel it. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. There was no business trip. My parents were flying halfway across the world for yet another of Jake's hockey pipe dreams, and they were willing to sacrifice my wedding to do it. With trembling fingers, I hit the call button next to Jake's name. Each ring felt like an eternity as I paced our living room, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. "Hey, sis." Jake's cheery voice came through the speaker. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jake, I just saw your post about going to Eastern Europe." "What's going on?" "Oh man, it's incredible." He gushed, his excitement palpable even through the phone. "Mom and Dad are the best, you know. They're paying for everything, the flight, my agent, a swanky hotel. They're even coming with me for support. Can you believe it?" My heart sank. So it was true. "When exactly are you going?" I asked, dreading the answer. "We leave next Friday. The tryouts start on Sunday." "Next Friday?" I cut him off, my voice rising. "Jake, that's my wedding day." There was a pause. Then Jake chuckled. "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, you can always reschedule, right? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Reschedule? Jake, it's my wedding. How can you even suggest that?" "Look, Amber," he said, his tone suddenly dismissive. "My career is more important than any wedding. You can get married any day, but this might be my last chance to make it big in hockey." Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt came pouring out. "Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how many times I've been pushed aside for your hockey dreams? How many times Mom and Dad have chosen you over me? And now you want me to give up my wedding day?" "Hey, it's not my fault Mom and Dad see my potential," Jake shot back. "Don't hate the player, hate the game, sis." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Jake, you're 22 years old. Don't you think it's time you handled your own career without Mom and Dad holding your hand?" He laughed, the sound grating on my already frayed nerves. Why would I do that when they're so willing to help? I'd be stupid to turn down their support. "Can't you see how selfish you're being?" I pleaded, a last desperate attempt to reach him. "Just this once, can't you step back and let this be about me?" "Sorry, sis," Jake replied, not sounding sorry at all. "I'm not concerned about your future. I'm not sacrificing my career for your little party." The line went dead, leaving me standing in shocked silence. I couldn't believe it. My own brother, so dismissive of one of the most significant moments of my life, and my parents willing to lie to me, to abandon me on my wedding day for yet another of Jake's hockey pipe dreams. Fury bubbled up inside me, hot and overwhelming. Why should I have to put my life on pause for Jake? Why couldn't my parents be honest with me? The unfairness of it all was suffocating. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. All those years of trying to understand, of making excuses for their behavior, of hoping things would change. It all felt so pointless now. The drive to my parents' house was tense, the air thick with unspoken words. Eric squeezed my hand reassuringly as we pulled into the driveway. "You've got this," he whispered, and I nodded, drawing strength from his support. Mom answered the door, her smile faltering as she took in our serious expressions. "Amber, Eric, what a surprise." Come in, come in." We found Dad in the living room, engrossed in what looked suspiciously like flight bookings on his laptop. He quickly closed it as we entered. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk about the wedding, and about Jake's trip to Europe." Their faces fell, guilt flashing across their features before they composed themselves. "What about Jake?" Dad asked, feigning innocence. "I told you, I have an important business trip." "Stop." I cut him off, my patience wearing thin. "I know the truth. Jake told me everything." A heavy silence fell over the room. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, their charade crumbling. "All right," Mom sighed. "Yes, we're going with Jake to Europe for his hockey tryouts. But Amber, you have to understand." "Understand what?" I interrupted, years of pent-up frustration bubbling to the surface. "That once again you're putting Jake first. That my wedding day means nothing compared to his hockey career." Dad's face hardened. "Now listen here, young lady, you're being selfish. This is Jake's future we're talking about. He's talented, and this could be his big break. As his family, we need to support him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Selfish? Me? What about all the times you've chosen Jake over me? My graduations, my achievements, and now my wedding. When has it ever been about me? "Amber," Mom pleaded, "you're an adult now. You have your career, your life with Eric. Jake still needs our help." "To what?" I shot back. "To chase a dream that's clearly not happening. He's 22, for God's sake. When will you let him stand on his own 2 feet?" The room fell silent again, my words hanging in the air. Then I took a deep breath and made my decision. I'm not canceling or postponing the wedding. If you choose not to be there, that's on you. I'm done putting my life on hold for Jake's ambitions. My parents stared at me, shock evident on their faces. Then Dad's expression darkened. "Now you listen here," he growled, jabbing a finger in my direction. "We're paying for half of this wedding. You'll do as we say, or we'll cancel every payment we've made. You can't afford this wedding without us." I felt Eric tense beside me, ready to jump to my defense, but I squeezed his hand, silently asking him to let me handle this. "Actually, Dad," I said, my voice calm despite the storm of emotions inside me, "we can. Eric and I are prepared to take out a loan to cover your half. We'll pay you back in full for every cent you've spent." The next week was a whirlwind. We went ahead with the wedding rehearsal, the bachelor and bachelorette parties, all the final preparations. Through it all, a small part of me kept hoping that my parents would come to their senses, that they'd show up and apologize. They didn't. The morning of my wedding day dawned bright and clear, as if the universe itself was celebrating with us. The ceremony was everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. As I walked down the aisle, not on my father's arm, but on my own, it was a symbol of the strength I'd found within myself. I saw Eric waiting for me, his face light with love and joy. In that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. We exchanged vows, our voices steady and sure, promising to love and support each other through whatever life might throw our way. As we sealed our union with a kiss, the cheers and applause from our friends and chosen family washed over us like a wave of pure love. The reception was a blur of laughter, dancing, and celebration. We ate, drank, and made merry, surrounded by people who truly cared about us. The photo shoot captured moments of pure, unadulterated happiness. Eric and I gazing into each other's eyes, our friends lifting us onto their shoulders, all of us laughing as we attempted a group dance number. Reality didn't set in until a week after we got back from our honeymoon. My mom's phone number flashed on my phone. Her voice cracked. Amber, sweetie, sounded strained and exhausted. From Europe, we have returned. Can we get together? We must have a conversation. Taking a deep breath, I prepared myself. No, Mom, I don't think that's a good idea. However, your brother was left off the team. Amber, he's distraught. Right now, he needs his big sister. I shut my eyes, resisting the recurring want to give in and become the understanding person once more. Mom, I'm sad to hear that, but I no longer have an issue with it. Do not call me again, please. Pay attention to Jake. It's obvious he needs you more than I do. I felt a wave of comfort and melancholy pass over me as I hung up and blocked their numbers. I deposited all of my parents' wedding contributions into their account the next day. Eric and I would be paying back the debt for some time, but the freedom it gave us made the hefty amount feel worthwhile. After a few weeks, I received a call from my friend Liv, informing me about a social media post that my parents had made. They portrayed me as the bad guy, accusing me of being conceited for marrying someone else without consulting them, and bemoaning the loss of my father's marriage by not accompanying me down the aisle. Those who were unaware of the whole tale left a plethora of empathetic remarks. However, my relatives, my aunts, uncles, and cousins, who had witnessed the years of disregard and partiality, intervened. They told it like it was, scolding my parents for constantly prioritizing Jake's interests above mine. Their encouragement moved me, but I stayed silent. I had closed that chapter of my life. After several months, life found a lovely new rhythm. Together, Eric and I traveled, immersed ourselves in our vocations, and made plans for the future. Our happiness at learning we were having our first child was untarnished by family strife. Every now and again, word got out through the family grapevine about Jake and my folks. After his hockey ambitions fell through, Jake had taken to drinking regularly, and my parents were desperately trying to get him well, dragging him from therapy to therapist. I felt a little sad for them because of the disaster their partiality and enabling had caused. However, a bigger part of me understood that I didn't have to carry it. I came to a significant realization as I sat in the nursery that Eric and I had meticulously prepared for our baby, my hand resting on my expanding tummy. I was making the family I'd always wanted, the love and support I'd yearned for, here and now.